Well, it's been an eventful summer here at Lisburn Distillery, probably one of our busiest transfer windows in recent seasons after a very important campaign at Euros 2036. We're now back for the second leg of our first Champions League qualifier. We've left ourselves in a bit of a difficult position. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 142 of this Build a Nation story, Lifting Spirits with me, Daniel. We are back today for the start of our 15th season as we head into the second leg of our first qualifier. Not quite so much pressure as previous years as we are guaranteed group stage football, but after what we achieved in the Champions League last year, and more importantly, after Linfield won a European trophy and completed our objective for this save, we have got a bit more pressure to live up to the hype. So we're going to go away to Lech Poznan today with a very slender advantage after a frustrating first leg. But more importantly, this has been a huge summer for us, both in terms of transfers of staff and players, and also in terms of what the nation has done, because a couple of things have probably surprised me. So I hope you're looking forward to all of that. If you are, do chuck a thumbs up on it. Let's go and get straight into the transfer news, because I've got a feeling this is going to take a little bit of time. Now, probably in previous years, you could accuse me of being a little bit too loyal, maybe sticking with people a little bit too long. This time I'm trying to be proactive and preempt what we're going to need to do in a year or two. We've been having some real problems with our Irish Premiership squad in recent years. We just can't get enough homegrown players in the nation for those 15 to 21 rules. So I'm trying to change that, but by creating a generation of homegrown players at the club and also finding some more squad players from the nation, which will enable us to fund other clubs too. So we've tried to take those elements in, but it has meant there's been some experienced casualties from this squad. Some of them permanently, some of them on loan, and some of them to surprising destinations. So you can see that one of the big problems we've had this summer is that loads of the big guns have been getting offers. A little bit weird how they've been spread about. So for example, the offers we've been getting for Mark Scully and Jordan Gash have been half the value of those for Duncan McKenzie, which I just find really weird because yes, they're a benefit to us being homegrown at the club, McKenzie and Reed, but they're definitely not worth more than Mark Scully or Jordan Gash in terms of as a player. So I'm not sure how they're calculated, especially when you consider it's the attacking players getting less of a fee, which is not normally the case, is it? But despite a few of those causing a temporary unhappiness in the squad and a lot of players coming in with dressing room revolts, we'll get over that. We know that'll pass. The big problem is we have had to get rid of a few stalwarts of this football club. Now, I'm going to take you through all of the players first. Lots of players going out of the club early. Some of them on loan, again, so the likes of Cliff O'Connell, he extended his loan at Portadown once they'd secured their survival. Maurice Simpson, we knew was leaving on a free. He went to Livingston. Dermot Lafferty went to Dundee for £500,000. That was pre-agreed to. Nick Caulfield, one who got a few appearances last year, he's joined Glentoran on loan as well. Darren Mills has gone on loan to Wickham after his long-term injury. And Jonathan Huxley, another youngster to Institute. The big one, which those of you that followed the Euros will know, is Kashif Beaton went to Linfield. Linfield won the Europa Conference on penalties against West Ham in one of the biggest smash and grab performances you'll ever see. Kashif Beaton seemed to be their first target after that. They've since signed a few more players and really bolstered their squad depth rather than just their 11. But Kashif Beaton, we made the decision that when big players were getting offers from within the nation, we were going to let them go because it gave us an opportunity to build other clubs up. And Kashif Beaton is a player who was not far away from starting level for us and also had huge potential. So at Linfield now as an important player at a club that's going straight into the Europa League group stages, he is going to get one hell of an experience. And he's got a good personality, so we know he'll improve as well. I'm looking forward to seeing his development there. And he's already worth double the money, which is great. We then go on to this season, and you can see there's far more ins than we've normally had. Let's start with the rest of the outs though, because a lot more money has come in and two big players have left the club and one other, surprisingly, has gone on loan within the nation. So we'll get through some of the big names. David Aitken did look like he was going to be that first youth star at one point. He's not really developed as much as we hoped. He's gone on loan to Harrogate in the National League. We'll see how he gets on. I like him to be part of the squad, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen now. Matthew Harkin has gone out on loan to Ballymena. He was at the stage where he needed football now. We've got his personality up to balanced. It was poorer before, so now he goes out on loan for football. Cameron Goss was the first big exit. He was linked with Linfield, but they never made an offer. They then signed 2 other centre-halves, and at that point I thought, right, let's just get him out the club. We'd signed Owen Kidd as another centre-half option again. We signed David Bird essentially as Goss's replacement, and due to those homegrown in the nation rulings again, there was no place for Goss, so he had to go. 850 grand from Livingston is a very healthy fee. Tamindu Puate followed. He goes to TNS for 50 grand. Remember him? He's gone there to be a backup player. Paul Symington went on loan to Linfield as part exchange for a Michael Collier deal. The big surprise, though, was Neil Daly, because this was a position where I thought, right, if I'm going to have any chance of getting an improvement in goal in the future, which we've now got space for when the right person comes along, I am going to have to sacrifice a midfielder. Neil Daly was that man, because we already had the starting 2. We've got Damien Dunn, who can cover there and attack in mid. We've got Morgan Griffiths, who's homegrown at the club, Brendan Thompson, who's homegrown in the nation, and Michael Collier, who comes in exchange for the other deal, who's homegrown in the nation. Our big signing is also a youngster who should be a good centre midfielder in the future. So Neil Daly had to go. What surprised me, though, was that one of the offers that came in was a loan deal from Coleraine. Now, unfortunately, he didn't go in time to save them from an early European exit. But when you consider the standard of the player, he was a big contributor to us even last season. The fact that he's gone to Coleraine, who are the 4th best side in the nation, I think is a really good sign for us this year. And maybe will make the domestic league stronger. We also let Ben Parry go for another similar reason. We've replaced him with an 18-year-old, which is a bit of a gamble, especially with Beaton leaving too. Mr. Leadis now not in form either. And I was essentially looking at the squad planner this year, looking at the backup 11 and saying which players are not homegrown in the nation that are not really adding a huge amount to our squad. And when we had 7 subs last season, Ben Parry wasn't making a bench a lot of the time. He did get an offer from Bristol City and TNS. He chose Bristol City. 700,000 for him. Been a really good servant again. We've had him over a number of spells. He had great loans with us. We got him on a free. We've sold him for 700 grand. So between him and Goss, we've made 1.5 million profit. We've still got to think about that as well. We then loaned out 3 more youngsters, nothing particularly big. But the ends is probably not quite as dramatic as it looks. We've signed a lot of players. We've got 1 key player back who started awfully. And we've obviously got 1 big signing, but the fee is a little bit deceptive because he's one for the future. We are now at the stage where our biggest priority, because we can't find those players who are homegrown in the nation from 15 to 21, the only ones in the Northern Ireland squad were Morgan Hassin, the keeper, Albert Press, who rejected us and went to Burnley, and then Mackie, the left winger from Linfield, who just has no interest in joining us, probably because they won a European trophy. So with that in mind, we have got to bring through our own players, and we haven't got the academy stars coming through, so the only choice is to take a gamble and sign some at 18. So that's what we've done. We start with Owen Kidd, who of course was on loan last year. He will become homegrown at the club. He will be homegrown in the nation. He's a very good young centre-half, got 4.5-star potential, maybe a future for the Northern Ireland national team as well. He's 2-footed, he's on a relatively low wage, and once he got released from his club, it was a good deal to get done. And we poached him from a few Scottish clubs as well, which meant we kept him in the nation. David Bird is the next one. He comes in from Bournemouth. Spent last year on loan at Linfield, where he played in that Europa Conference run and final. He's a brilliant centre-half. He's probably an improvement, and we have had to up the wage bill slightly, but he is going to come in, and he's going to be a competition for Mackenzie. The 3 of them, adding in Luke Smith as well, who we didn't know we were going to get back for most of the summer, are going to be real competition. He can play left-back comfortably as well. Not sure why when he's a natural right-footer, but definitely someone who improves this squad and probably improves the team. Basically a direct upgrade for Cameron Goss. Misolidis was the key one. We got him back from Brentford when he reduced his wage demands. He is now the highest paid player at the club, and he'd only sign a 2-year deal. He's also started the season woefully, which is some concern, but he's going to play off the left-hand side again, as well as being an option up front. And much like many of our other signings in recent years, it's all about the physicality, the height, having that back post header. We saw the impact last year, and hopefully he can do the same again once he gets firing. The other four that have come in since, despite amounting to all of our spend so far this summer, are probably not going to be near the first 11 this year. Ashley Doherty is basically a backup goalkeeper. He gives us an option with Darren Murphy getting older now to bring in a very cheap utility second or third choice keeper who's homegrown in the nation, and that's exactly what we wanted. Linfield released him, he'd done alright over the years there, and he'll now come in and provide competition for Darren Murphy as backup to Neil Kane. The big spend of the summer went on Chris Houston, who is, a £1 million signing from Kilmarnock. Crucially, he is 18 years of age and he's got huge potential. He is not a player that is near first team level, and we're going to have to gamble a bit because he's going to have to play ahead of Collier and Thompson, who are both better than him. But he's got big potential for the future. He's clearly a very good player. He works his backside off and he's got a good personality. So I trust him to make it towards the top. We've got great facilities and great coaches now, so we can help him. And he is a Scotland Youth International, so he's getting that extra experience too. But this is what I'm talking about now for our transfer work. Rather than going for big ready-made players, unless they're going to be a huge upgrade to our first 11, this is the sort of signing we've got to make so we can meet our quotas in the future. The next one, probably an essential deal. The swap with Symington was Michael Collier. Bit annoyed I've had to pay 400 grand, but to be fair, they gave us lots of money for Beaton. He's a 29-year-old, which isn't ideal. He's a Northern Irishman who's not good enough to be near their squad, but he was the best player from their squad who was homegrown in the nation that would also join our football team. He's picked up a knock already. We've got loads of injuries this pre-season, but he's just a backup player who is homegrown in Northern Ireland. The final one was a bit of a wild card. He popped up in a scout report. I wasn't really looking for him. So the reason Ben Parry has left the club is that we've got this guy on loan who's now out injured again, but Vladimir Komjenovic has come in from Kukariki on loan. Wouldn't sign a permanent deal, but I'm hoping we can do what we did with Missalidis, Kidd, Gash, Reed, you name it, all of those players before. He is an 18-year-old Serbian international left winger. He's not quite as tall or physically imposing as Missalidis, but he's very good. He's a good striker, he's a good left midfielder, and at 18 he's got bundles of potential as well, so I'm hoping he might be one of those little rough diamonds. It's the first time really we've had big scouting reports from outside of the UK and Ireland. We've been able to go worldwide this summer because we've got so much money in the bank, such a big scouting team. And he is probably our first one that's come in as a result of that directly. So I'm hoping he's going to be a bit of a gem, bit of a trailblazer. But this season, I would expect him to play a part, particularly when it comes to the league fixtures. We'll have a look at what the other sides in the nation have done in a minute, but I've got to very quickly show you staff because I'd mentioned these a few times during the Euros episodes, but just as a quick roundup, Derby got promoted to the Premier League. They've been trying to poach all of our players and staff. They did steal one of our best performance analysts. Rotherham stole our scout in Dean Smith. We offered him a chance to be director of football. He didn't want it. We also lost a couple of coaches and our assistant manager and our head of youth development. All of those released at the end of their contract. So a mix of losing stars, but also wanting to upgrade. A bit like the playing staff, really. So we're expanding off the pitch as well as on it. I always talk about the importance of staffing, and you'll never hear me stop. For us to reach the top, we have to stay ahead of the curve on that front. So that is what's been happening at Distillery this summer. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. The good staffing additions, the player additions. It's a bit of a gamble in my eyes, what we've done with the playing staff, but I'm hoping it will pay off. We've got loads of injuries at the moment. I'll show you very quickly so you can see. A few of them are backups, there's no doubt in that, but Hamilton's out long term, Murphy's out the backup keeper. We mentioned the winger from Serbia and Michael Collier. We've also lost Lewis Scott and Stuart Tomlinson. But it's not just about us, is it? This is a builder nation. We've seen what happened in the Euros with our great run to the quarter-final. But what's been happening at other football clubs? A lot is the answer. Linfield are now basically at a stage where they're loaning players out to League 1 and 2. They're loaning players out to the League of Ireland and the Scottish Championship teams. They're a bit above. And obviously they won a European trophy. But what they've done with that, I think is pretty impressive because they've improved the squad in terms of quality, but more so quantity too. They've let a few of those emergency backups go from last year, the likes of Corey Craig, Mason Hancock, etc. And he brought in some really good players. We know they got Kashif beaten as their big one at the start of the summer. When you take an example that a month earlier, they let Justin Ferisaj go, who had been there for 6 or 7 years, had got to 30. They then made 100 grand profit on him. and got a replacement in cash if beaten. I mean, that's a class above. They're making improvements. They've also this summer got Harry Smith on a free from Birmingham, who is one for the future, if nothing else. Michael Black for £1 million from Aberdeen, who you can see, very competitive centre-half, as good as anything we've got for sure. They've brought in Juan Guzman from Swansea, who is another centre-half that's not quite as good, but still a very decent one and a good leader as well. Beckham McPhee from Plymouth is a defensive midfielder who adds real bite to them, got a great personality too. They've added Paul Symington from us in that swap deal, and then they've got another free deal in Reece Russell-Denny, and he's another good central midfielder who adds depth to the squad. So where they've lost the likes of Collier and Hancock and Corey Craig, they've definitely made improvements. They've added a bit of quality. They've added a bit of depth. They added staff, as we saw a minute ago, and they've spent a couple of million quid. So good news on the Linfield front. Oh, and I didn't mention Linfield. We asked the question. Ryan Dunn, he won the European trophy. He was poached very quick. He left, the 15th of June, just 2.5 weeks later. He was poached by Sunderland for 11 grand a week. But look at the man they've got in to replace him. Grant McCann, a reputable Northern Irish manager. A massive upgrade in terms of quality and attributes. Plays a counter-attacking style, so not too dissimilar to Dunn. Maybe they'll be a bit more progressive as well. But it does show that bigger names are coming over. EFL managers coming to Northern Ireland. Michael Duff and Grant McCann, two former star internationals, both now in the league. Loads of other clubs doing good business as well. Coleraine do deserve a mention because they're becoming our old B team. They've brought in Neil Daly on loan from us. They've also got Harley Jones from Larne, who will add depth to their squad. And they've brought in a few others as well. Saykirk is a player we looked to sign a few years ago. He's a really good striker, but has problems with injuries and consistency. He did score 1 and 2 for Bristol Rovers last year though, and he's now gone to the 4th best side in Northern Ireland, which I think is a bit of a good sign. So all in all, I'm pretty excited. There's lots of good things happening, and generally it's worked pretty well for these sides. Coleraine, unfortunately, did get a tough draw in Europe and go out early. They just didn't get Neil Daly in time, which meant they were unfortunately going to be a sitting duck. But Larne and Linfield are doing well. Linfield, we know, are straight into the Europa League because they won the Europa Conference. For Larne, they have got through against Valmiera very comfortably in the Europa Conference League and then got a lead in Turkey, a league that's really dropped off actually, and they're 2-1 up going into the home leg tomorrow. So good news on the nation front, good news on the club front, albeit we've taken a bit of a gamble. But it didn't work out in the first leg because despite our dominance against Lech Poznan, we only won by 1-0. Stephen Cowan was brilliant. Virtually everyone else misfired, and it does leave us with, well, a little bit of jeopardy going into this. I'm still fairly confident we get through. Let's get through to the fixtures and see how we get on, as nearly 30,000 fans are coming to Poland. You may have noticed nearly 6,000 were at our qualifier, which is a really good sign. But this is the team we've gone for. It's very similar to last year, the first 11. In fact, it's exactly the same. What we've added is players for the future, and as a result, you're not seeing much into the first 11 yet. There's a possibility that David Bird will break in. I don't think any of the others will this year. So what that means is we've got Neil Kane in goal until we can find a better goalkeeper. Reed and Stow are the two unhappy fullbacks. Both of them want to leave after bids were rejected. Mackenzie and Smith are at centre-half. Jordan Gash is another one of the complainers in the middle with Damien Jude. And then we've got a front four of Cowan, Merivale Austin, the returning Missalidis, and Mark Scully up front. We need to get Scully off the mark. We need to get Missalidis back in form. We've got quality on the bench. Have we got quantity? Or with the injuries, not really. Let's go and get into the second leg, see if we can make it comfortable. Hopefully, it'll be a good night at the office, and then we'll be just one game from the Champions League groups again. Well, the usual stuff with Lech Poznan. Not a big squad, but they have got two very good international strikers, so we'll see how they get on today. Not filled a bench, but then you look at our head coach this year, we've not been able to do that with Dortmund or United at times, so it's not particularly a big sign of concern. We've struggled at some of the biggest clubs in Europe, so I don't think we can blame Lech. They've got a strong bench, they've got enough players in. Let's get through the tunnel interview and into the first half. Well, we're back very quickly, just a couple of minutes in. Lech Poznan are on the ball, and we've nicked the ball high up with Gash. It is definitely having an impact on our performances that a few players are unhappy, but they are defensive ones. And this man, Stephen Cowan, as much as he's upset me in this save because he won't change his allegiance to Northern Ireland, even though he can, he has definitely been the star man this season so far. A big monumental performance in the home leg when no one else was in form. And in this one, he's given us an early lead and maybe has seen us through in a Champions League, because the first leg performance we were dominant, but we didn't create many great chances. And in this leg, Stephen Cowan has just given us a sigh of relief early on, as it's on the left with Lech Poznan, 15 on the clock. Cut inside here, and they get it 25 yards out. Chance to shoot under no pressure at all. And it's only just wide of the post. I'm not sure Neil Kane had that covered. We're 20 minutes gone. We'll take this so far. We're 1-0 up on the night, 2-0 on aggregate, and we should be getting through pretty comfortably. Well, now we see the problem of some of our summer decisions, because both Beaton and Parry have left the club. The new backup left winger's got injured, and now we're out of options. We've got lots of good attacking players, but none of them really can play off the left. Paul Elliott slightly. Jordan Howard maybe a little bit. I really don't know what to do here. None of them are particularly confident off the left-hand side. Maybe it'll be Stephen Cowan who looks the best, so he's going to go over. I'm not sure if he's tall enough to have a threat. Oh, he is good in the air, so that's not a problem. And then on the right, we'll bring on Paul Elliott, our international star. He will play on that side as well. We've got 2 minutes to half time. It's been comfortable so far. And Lech Poznan, they've probably offered less of a threat than they did on the road, which is really weird, because normally at home, these sides go for it a bit more in Europe. But we're not getting the spaces on the break. We are having more injury problems. I'm wondering if it's going to be one of those seasons, you know, because this is 2 or 3 a game now. Even in the friendly at the weekend, we got 2. Jordan Howard will come on up front. He is the big signing who got his 2 appearances in a cup last year. But now he's registered for everything. And boy, are we going to need him. If that Scully injury is bad, we're in trouble. The Misselidis one is bad. Not sure we've got much depth, as Stow's got a throw in with an hour gone. If we can get one more, I will start resting people so we don't get any more big injuries. We can't afford to lose like a Merivale Austin now, as he puts Cowan in. Cowan's hit the bar. Oh, he looks like a different level to everyone else. Maybe there's a hangover from some for the summer tournament, but not for Cowan. What a man. As Jude heads away the long ball to Cowan, flicks on for Howard. He carries it forward. He's got a man inside of him. Keeps it himself though. It's good footwork. And he cuts inside. Looks for the short ball for Jude. And Gash. He's brought down and that man's on a yellow. He is going off. Let's make a couple of subs ourselves. The ref's shown he's happy to do that. So, Duncan McKenzie will come off. He's had a poor game anyway. David Bird will come on for him. I'm going to give Merivale Austin a rest because I just don't trust him to stay fit, and he is someone we desperately need depending on those other ones. So Damien Dunn for him, and we'll save the last sub 5 more just in case, because we've already had 2 injuries. But at the moment it's been a very good night as Jude hits his free kick over the bar. We're comfortably through, but those injuries are going to be the headache. If we get a lot this season, the squad depth will really be tested, because I've taken a bit of a gamble in weakening that backup team. And in a year we have to rely on them more. That would not be ideal. As Reed gets it into Elliott. Howard finds Stout. Turns to Cowan. He scored again. Should I be worried that he's the only man that scored for this club this season? Or should I just be enjoying it because he's having the time of his life and he's producing great performances? But we could do with someone else popping up with one. 4 minutes of stoppage time played. It's a 2-0 win on the night. A really good performance and result. But what are those injuries going to be? Who are we going to get in the next qualifying round as well? Let's go and find out the answers and see when we're going to be back. Well, Misselidis is out for 3 weeks. That is the rest of August done. And more importantly, it's the playoff round done. Now, I'm getting a little bit confused by this because you can see it as Scully's out for 2 weeks as well. We've drawn Derry City again. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the exact path we've had the last 2 or 3 years. We definitely played Lech Poznan. And I'm pretty sure the year that we went out to Lech, we would have faced Derry City. So I don't know if it's just the way the Champions League draws set up. Is it the fact that we've got the best coefficient of them now? But it does seem odd that we're getting the same opposition each year. The benefit is I think we can beat Derry City. And even with the few injuries we'll be all right. But definitely a concern. We've got so many players out at the moment. That now makes it 8 injuries, I think. 7 of them that would be involved in the first team squad. And crucially, 3 of them players that can play off the left-hand side, which we've not got much depth in. So maybe we're going to have to look for a lone player again. We'll wait and see how that works out. But for now, let's go through to the schedule and see when we're going to be back. I'm tempted to leave the Derry City game. We'll see if the first leg leaves us in jeopardy. If it does, we'll come back for the second. If not, we'll just go straight through it. We know that Linfield are already in Europe anyway and Lana flying, so we should be okay on that front. We'll probably do something around deadline date because we'll be looking for a goalkeeper, but we'll see what happens with the Derry City side before making our full decision. If you're looking forward to seeing what happens though, and whether we can make the Champions League groups again in spite of a big injury crisis at the start of this season, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know what you think of the summer transfer work, and more importantly, all of the players that have gone into other clubs as well. Are we going to get some competition this year, or are we still a level above? Let me know your thoughts on that. If you want to stay up to date and find out the answer, then subscribe and turn that notification bell on. We'll be back with this one in a couple of days' time, but first, the head coach returns tomorrow. You can also find in the eye above links to our top 3 series and my fun little reaction video to your biggest FM superstitions last weekend. A new season coming on the podcast, the Twitch channel for live streams from F1 Manager next week too. A massive thank you for your support with everything. I'll see you back here in a couple of days' time. Please, no more injuries.